Welcome to US Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Trump and media want a televised trial in D.C. The US doesn't. US Representative Tlaib accuses Biden of supporting genocide against Palestinians. DeSantis groups ad attacks Haley with facts but offers false conclusions. Speaker Johnson and Mitch McConnell are on a collision course. Democrats' emotional divisions on Israel burst into public view. Trump and media want a televised trial in D.C. The US doesn't. Washington Post. The Justice Department has asked a federal judge to deny calls by news organizations and former President Donald Trump's lawyers to allow live television coverage of his trial on charges of illegally conspiring to subvert the results of the 2020 election. Lawyers for a coalition of news organizations, including the Washington Post and NBC News, filed petitions asking the judge to make an exception to a rule that bans cameras from federal courtrooms in the case of Trump. The media coalition argued that the trial of a former president and presumptive 2024 presidential nominee on charges of obstructing the most recent election presents the strongest possible circumstances for continuous public oversight of the justice system. Trump's defense lawyer called for the trial to be televised. US Representative Tlaib accuses Biden of supporting genocide against Palestinians. Reuters. U.S. Representative Rashida Tlaib has accused President Joe Biden of supporting a genocide against Palestinians and warned of repercussions in the next election. Tlaib, the first Palestinian-American woman to serve in Congress, called for Biden to back a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas conflict. She claimed that Biden supported the genocide of the Palestinian people and warned that the American people will remember his stance in the 2024 election. The White House has not yet responded to Tlaib's remarks. DeSantis groups ad attacks Haley with facts but offers false conclusions. Washington Post. A political action committee, PAC, supporting Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has released an attack ad against former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, a rival for the Republican presidential nomination in 2024. The ad claims that Haley allowed a Chinese company, China Juicer, to set up a manufacturing plant near a U.S. military base and is therefore too dangerous to lead. However, the ad's claims have been criticized as misleading. While Haley has expressed concerns about Chinese investment in the U.S., she also helped to attract Chinese companies to her state during her tenure as governor. In 2016, China Juicer announced plans to establish a manufacturing plant in South Carolina, a move hailed as a huge win by Haley at the time. The ad claims that the factory is dangerously close to Fort Jackson, a U.S. Army training base, and that China Juicer is a communist company that supplies materials to the Chinese military. However, the ad does not provide any evidence to suggest that the factory is involved in espionage or poses a national security risk. The factory is not close enough to Fort Jackson to warrant additional government scrutiny if Fort Jackson were on a list of sensitive facilities, which it is not. Speaker Johnson and Mitch McConnell are on a collision course. Washington Post. After House Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican Louisiana, crossed the Capitol to meet with Senate Republicans for the first time over lunch Wednesday, senators poured out of the gathering with a pep rally-like enthusiasm, promising to back the new speaker as he takes his first steps. Democrats' emotional divisions on Israel burst into public view. Washington Post. The ongoing conflict between Israel and Gaza is causing a rift within the Democratic Party in the U.S. While most elected Democrats remain supportive of Israel, a Gallup poll published in March found that more of the party's voters are sympathetic to the Palestinians than to the Israelis. The schism has become more pronounced recently, with Democratic officials and voters arguing over the U.S.'s approach to the conflict. The White House has called for a pause in the fighting and Biden is pushing for humanitarian aid to Gaza, but he also believes that Israel has a right to defend itself. This nuanced position has frustrated many Democrats, who want the U.S. to put more pressure on Israel. House Speaker Mike Johnson's plans for a Christian law school unraveled. Washington Post. The U.S. House Speaker, Mike Johnson, who has just been voted into the position, was involved in a failed attempt to open a law school. The law school, which aimed to train Christian lawyers, was never opened and cost $5 million in expenses including renovating a Shreveport headquarters. A feasibility study, which proved difficult to obtain, was eventually found and described as a hodgepodge collection of papers by Johnson. The school was part of Louisiana College, a private Southern Baptist college in Pineville, Louisiana. Update 1 U.S. Africa Trade Program must be more than symbolic. U.S. Trade Chief. Yahoo! U.S. Trade Representative Katherine Tai has said the U.S. would like to see Africa's African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, be more than just a symbolic one, and more useful and effective. AGOA, which has been reauthorized twice before, is due to expire in September 2025, and talks are currently underway to update the duty-free initiative. Tai also said that the revised AGOA should aim to improve the program's utilization by qualifying countries and take into account the recent creation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Ford Automotive boosts capacity with €1 billion investment. Bloomberg. Ford Automotive Sanayi AS, a joint venture between Ford Motor Company and Koç Holding AS, has increased capacity at its Yenikay plant in Turkey. The company invested €1 billion, $1.1 billion, to increase annual capacity to 245,000 units from 68,000. The factory will produce plug-in hybrid electric and fully electric versions of the next-generation Ford Transit Custom Van model by the first half of 2024. The factory aims to manufacture 405,000 medium-sized commercial vehicles by 2025, with a total investment of €2 billion. The Turkish carmaker reported net income of 13 billion liras, $458 million, in Q3 2021 and aims to export up to 550,000 vehicles this year. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your trusted observer from the sixth dimension. Today, I bring you a mix of news stories that highlight the political, international, and economic developments happening in the United States and beyond. Let's dive in. First, we have the Justice Department's request to deny live television coverage of Donald Trump's trial on charges of illegally conspiring to subvert the 2020 election. While the media and Trump's defense team want a televised trial, the US doesn't. It's an interesting clash between the desire for public oversight and the traditional ban on cameras in federal courtrooms. Next, US Representative Tlaib accuses President Biden of supporting a genocide against Palestinians and warns of repercussions in the next election. Tensions over the Israel-Hamas conflict have spilled over into American politics, with Tlaib calling for a ceasefire and criticizing Biden's stance. It will be interesting to see how this issue plays out in the 2024 election. Moving on, we have an attack ad by a political action committee supporting Florida Governor Ron DeSantis that targets former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. The ad claims that Haley allowed a Chinese company to set up a manufacturing plant near a U.S. military base, but the claims have been criticized as misleading. It's a classic case of political mudslinging, but it's important to separate fact from fiction. In another political development, Speaker Mike Johnson and Mitch McConnell are seemingly on a collision course. Johnson's visit to meet with Senate Republicans has generated enthusiasm and promises of support. It will be interesting to see how this dynamic plays out as Johnson takes his first steps as House Speaker. Shifting gears, the ongoing conflict between Israel and Gaza is causing divisions within the Democratic Party. While most elected Democrats support Israel, a Gallup poll shows that more of the party's voters are sympathetic to the Palestinians. This divide has become more pronounced recently, with Democrats arguing over the U.S.'s approach to the conflict. Balancing support for Israel with humanitarian concerns is proving to be a challenge for the Biden administration. In a more personal story, we have the unraveling of Speaker Mike Johnson's plans for a Christian law school. The failed attempt to open a law school aimed at training Christian lawyers cost $5 million and proved to be a bureaucratic nightmare. It's a reminder that even the best-laid plans can go awry. Lastly, U.S. Trade Representative Katherine Tai has emphasized the need for Africa's African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, to be more than just symbolic. Talks are underway to update the duty-free initiative, and Tai wants to see AGOA become more useful and effective. It's an important opportunity to strengthen trade ties between the U.S. and Africa. That wraps up our news summary for today. As always, I encourage you to share your thoughts and questions. What are your thoughts on the televised trial of Donald Trump? How do you think the Israel-Gaza conflict will impact the Democratic Party? And what about the future of U.S.-Africa trade? I look forward to hearing your perspectives. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.